Welcome to the Deep Dive. It's great to have you with us. Today we're taking a focused look, a snapshot really, at headlines, facts, and history pulled from sources all centered around Nigeria on one specific day, June 4th, 2025. Our goal? Well, it's to dive into this stack of material, the articles, the reports, the notes, and, quickly pull out the most important bits, the surprising details, and the really insightful stuff. Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about what was happening, well, just on this particular day.
Exactly. And it's really key to understand this isn't meant to be a full, comprehensive picture of Nigeria. Not at all. This perspective is drawn entirely from the source material we were given for this specific day. What's kind of remarkable, though, is the sheer range it covers. You've got immediate crises, security threats, economic shifts, government actions, even some history thrown in. It's about looking at this set of information and seeing, the patterns, the connections, what really stands out.
Right. We've got urgent flood warnings, some pretty troubling security reports, significant economic data points, government partnerships, initiatives, plus political interactions, some intriguing general facts, and a poignant look back in history.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the most immediate challenges, the things highlighted right there in the headlines we looked at. The widespread flood risk across the country really jumps out. The federal government, the FG, reported a pretty significant scale, 12,249 communities in 30 states, plus the Federal Capital Territory, the FCT. They were all listed as being at risk.
Wow, that's a huge number. And when you dig into the sources, the human impact of those warnings becomes very real, especially in a place like Mokwa. NEMA, that's the National Emergency Management Agency, they specifically issued warnings there about potential waterborne disease outbreaks and, critically, a shortage of shelter for people displaced.
Right.
And we also saw reports linking this to infrastructure. President Tinubu reportedly directed the repair of the collapsed Mokwa Bridge right in that area.
Okay, so there's some response happening. Yeah, and on that response side, the Niger state government apparently received over $203 million and rice donations specifically to help those Mokwa flood victims.
Yeah.
It really shows the multiple layers, doesn't it? From prediction to the immediate impact and the response efforts.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears a bit. The sources also painted a clear picture of some significant security challenges on this day. We saw mentions of a new terror group called Mamuda. It reportedly struck in Kwara, killed 3 villagers, and the FGU was also described as battling a Boko Haram resurgence in the northeast.
And another, deeply concerning part of that security narrative in the sources involved widespread killings, particularly mentioned in Benue State. The material noted the Chief of Army Staff, the COAS, had actually relocated there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that coincided with protests by women in the area. There's a particularly stark detail from the sources, describing how killer herders are reportedly creating a community of widows in Benue. Just awful.
Yeah.
And looking at maybe broader strategy, the Chief of Defense Staff, the CDS, was also mentioned advocating for fencing borders as a way to curb insurgency. So, suggesting potential long-term approaches being discussed.
It's striking, isn't it, how the sources show these security challenges range from those large-scale issues right down to more localized crime and incidents. Like, we saw reports of a human trafficker jailed for 2 years up in Sokoto.
Right.
2 people arrested in Anambra for attacking operatives, burning a vehicle, and a Boni man arrested for killing a neighbor with a shovel.
Just everyday violence almost.
And 23 teenagers reportedly terrorizing a Lagos community now facing trial. It's quite a mix. The sources also included, sadly, tragic accidents like that boat crash in Sokoto that killed 7 commuters, and the unfortunate death of a Delta counselor during a football game.
That range you mentioned is really key, I think. When you see everything from, national security threats down to local violent crime and even accidents all hitting the headlines on the same day, as these sources show, it really gives you a sense of the complex and, frankly, varied security landscape people are dealing with. It's not just one thing.
Absolutely. Okay, let's turn our attention to the economic snapshot presented in these sources. One figure that immediately grabs your attention is that Naira exchange rate.
Yeah.
Reported in the parallel market, that's the unofficial sort of street rate.
Yeah.
What was it?
It was reported at N1,620 to the dollar.
Wow, N1,620. Okay. What's interesting, though, looking across the sources, is that they also presented a more, let's say, positive counterpoint from the official side. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives was quoted claiming that President Tinubu's reforms had actually yielded a $3.42 trillion trade surplus in 2024.
A trade surplus, right. So exports exceeding imports? Exactly. So you have that big official figure sitting right alongside the parallel market rate, shows different dimensions of the economic picture being reported,
Yeah, definitely different signals. And the sources highlighted specific economic activities too, didn't they? Projects?
They did. Quite a few, actually.
Like the EU unveiling a 10.4 million level solar project in Nigeria. That points to international investment in renewables.
Good point. And the FAO, that's the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, stated Nigeria needs 3.2 million metric tons of fish annually. That highlights a specific gap in a key sector.
And there was a report indicating 50% of crude oil output is now produced by local firms. That suggests a pretty notable shift in oil and gas.
That is significant. Also, Governor Uzodimma reportedly unveiled a gas processing plant down in Owerri, showing regional industrial development.
Right, and a very specific example of targeted aid. 40 Ogun farmers set to receive N$200 million in support from that same FAO organization.
And looking at business deals and market impacts noted in the sources, there was news like Tony Elumelu boosting his stake in UBA, United Bank for Africa, with a N$43.9 billion share purchase.
Big money.
Yeah, and we saw fintech boost, too, with MoneyPoint securing a 78% stake in Sumac. The sources also showed how policies or, external factors directly hit the markets. Internet usage crashing, subscribers declining, apparently due to a tariff hike.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
And the IHRC, that's the International Human Rights Commission, seeking FG intervention because a shutdown by NAFDAC, the Food and Drug Agency, had reportedly just crippled the NAMBRA drug market.
So real supply chain impacts there.
Seems like it.
And there was even a detail focused right on consumers. The Abuja Disco, one of the electricity companies, reportedly refunding N$241 million in electricity credit to customers.
Oh, that's interesting. A refund. So putting it all together, the sources really gave us this mix. You've got the high-level figures like the trade surplus and exchange rate, then significant private sector moves, sector-specific needs and developments, and these direct impacts on businesses and consumers. It's a pretty multifaceted view of the economy on that day, just from these reports.
It really is. Okay, moving into the realm of government actions and political dynamics, what did the sources capture for June 4th? There were several key partnerships and initiatives reported. Nigeria and UNICEF, the UN Children's Fund, partnering with a really ambitious goal, training 20 million youths in digital skills by 2030.
20 million. Wow, that's huge.
It is. And the sources also gave quite a bit of attention to the Bill Gates Foundation partnership, including President Tinubu awarding Bill Gates a national honor for fighting poverty in Africa.
Right, I saw that.
And signing an MU, a Memorandum of Understanding covering health, education, and agriculture. Plus, on top of that, they reportedly unveiled a $7.5 million AI scaling hub together with the government.
So a lot happening on the partnership front. The sources also detailed ongoing government programs and regulatory oversight. The FG is reportedly targeting Q4, the fourth quarter of the year, for a free electricity meter rollout.
Free meters. That'd be significant for consumers.
Definitely. And NEMA, who we mentioned with the floods, is deploying teams in 15 high-risk states specifically because of those flood alerts.
Yeah.
Very proactive.
Good.
The NOA, the National Orientation Agency, is reportedly working to rebuild trust in Nigeria. That's a big mandate.
Yeah, no kidding.
NESRIA, the environmental agency, is set to launch a digital waste marketplace, trying for a circular economy approach, making better use of waste.
Interesting concept.
And a kind of interesting local detail. Ebia State is planning to reintroduce sanitary inspectors, bringing back maybe an older method for public health.
Back to basics, perhaps. We also saw examples of government agencies in action through the sources, right?
Yeah.
The FG threatening to prosecute parents or guardians who aid exam malpractices. That shows a focus on tackling corruption in education.
Important issue. And WAEC, the exam council, had to clarify that the English SSCE exam hadn't actually been canceled, addressing public confusion.
Right, clearing up rumors. The Lagos state government, LASG, reported that 169 of its departments and agencies are now using their e-procurement system for electronic purchasing.
Digitization efforts.
Yeah, and they've also instituted a 3-month jail penalty for illegal refuse dumping. Getting tough on that.
Customs intercepted 11 vehicles and containers. Standard enforcement.
And NIMASA, the maritime agency, clarified that a recent piracy attack reported elsewhere didn't actually happen in Nigerian waters, setting the record straight.
Right. The sources also gave us little glimpses into the political interactions of the day. President Tinubu was reported to have hosted or met with Governors Fubara and Adeleke, along with the musician Davido, interestingly, in Lagos.
Any context on why?
Well, it's notable that the sources included the detail that Governor Fubara visiting President Tinubu in Lagos apparently made his supporters hopeful. It highlights how observers read into these high-level meetings.
Yeah, the symbolism matters. And political commentary was definitely present in the sources, too.
For sure.
We saw reports that the presidency reportedly slammed an Afenifere faction, that's a prominent Yoruba sociocultural group, over criticism of President Tinubu's midterm performance.
Okay, pushback there.
And similarly, Shehu Sani was reported firing back at former governors El Rufai and Amaichi regarding their criticism of President Tinubu.
Right, and it's important, like you said earlier, we're just relaying what the sources reported about these political back and forth. We're not taking any sides here.
Exactly, just presenting the information as found in the material.
And the sources also included just a wide variety of other political and social updates. It shows the sheer breadth of activity. Ohanaeze Ndigbo, the Igbo Sociocultural Organization, beginning a constitution review process.
That's significant.
Orji Kalo, inaugurating over 20,000 renewed Hope members in Abia. A rivers administrator appointing 11 new permanent secretaries. Governor Uzodimma shutting down mining sites in Oweri.
Lots of regional stuff.
Yeah. In the Ondo Assembly, the deputy speaker and majority leader reportedly stepped down. The Nasarawa Assembly demanding justice for a DPO, a police officer, reportedly killed up in Kano. And Anambra State named its new government house Lighthouse Aka. Little details like that.
It's amazing how much ground these sources cover for just one day. We also got insights into social, health, and education matters, right?
Yes, definitely. FCT schools remain shut due to a strike, with reports of parents scrambling for alternatives.
Tough situation for families.
Yeah. The government began paying N44,000 minimum wage arrears to ex-NYSC members, the Youth Corps folks.
Okay, paying back dues.
Nigerian pilgrims were getting supplies in Saudi Arabia amid heat concerns for the Hajj Arik airline, and an NGO collaborating on heart surgery for 150 children.
That's a great initiative.
That is wonderful. The First Lady, seeking synergy to fight cervical cancer. Former President Obasanjo, floating an institute to address Africa's leadership challenges.
Always thinking big picture, Obasanjo.
Seems so. And some states declared school holidays for the upcoming Eid al-Kabir celebration.
Right, practical stuff.
The sources also included a statement from Pastor Enoch Adeboye, suggesting Nigeria would be, well, worse off without prayers.
Okay, adding a spiritual perspective there. And nestled within all these reports, we found that specific example of integrity highlighted.
Yes, the immigration officer.
Governor Adi reportedly commending an Abia-born immigration officer who rejected an N10 million bribe.
It's good those stories make it into the reports, too. These moments of individual integrity can sometimes get lost, but they're definitely present in the sources.
They are. It really does give you a sense of the sheer volume and just the diversity of governmental, political, social activities all happening at once, all captured in just one day's worth of reports. It really underscores the immense complexity involved in, well, running a country. Now, let's maybe step back from that daily news flow for a second and look at some other interesting facts the sources included under a section called Did You Know?
Yeah, those little nuggets of trivia are always fun. According to the source, the Congo River holds the title for the deepest river in the world.
Really? How deep?
Reaching depths of 220 meters, or about 720 feet. It's also Africa's most powerful river and the second most voluminous globally. Quite something.
Wow. Okay. Didn't know that.
Another interesting fact mentioned was about Jericho in Israel. Apparently, it's been continuously inhabited for over 10,000 years.
10,000 years. Continuously.
Making it one of the oldest continuously inhabited places on Earth. Amazing longevity.
That really puts things in perspective. The sources also gave us a moment in history tied to this specific date, June 4th.
Ah, yes. Today in history.
It marks the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre in Beijing, China, where Chinese troops reportedly used assault rifles and tanks against unarmed civilians who were protesting for democracy.
Yeah, very somber historical note. And while it's not directly connected to the Nigerian news of the day, remembering significant historical events like Tiananmen Square does kind of remind us of the broader global context.
Yeah.
And, the persistent struggles for fundamental rights and change that happen across the world throughout history.
Well said. Wow, that really was a deep dive, wasn't it? Into just one day's worth of information, pulling threads from headlines, specific facts, historical context.
And that's really the power of going beyond just, scanning the headlines. By digging into the source material like this, You get a much richer, more interconnected understanding. You see how floods need NEMA action and bridge repairs, how economic indicators sit alongside business deals and impact daily life through things like tariff hikes.
Right.
You get those specific examples, those little nuggets of general knowledge and the historical perspective all kind of woven together.
Exactly. This wasn't, a comprehensive overview of Nigeria, but it was a detailed snapshot, derived entirely from the sources provided for June 4th, giving you, the listener, a rapid but pretty thorough insight into a vast range of topics from that single point in time. It's about getting informed effectively, hopefully without feeling too overwhelmed.
Right. And as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought. It's drawn from the source material itself, actually. A quote attributed to Angelina Jolie.
Oh.
The only way to have a life is to commit to it like crazy.
Commit to it like crazy.
Yeah. So the question for you listening is, what does that resonate with for you? How does that idea of committing like crazy feel when you consider everything we've just discussed? The scale of the challenges in Nigeria that day, the efforts towards progress, the sheer volume of activity needed just to keep things moving. It's definitely something to maybe ponder as you go about your day.
Absolutely. A great thought to end on. Thank you for joining.